Mark meets Mike Dodds, the CEO of Proximity London. Hi Mike.
Hi. Morning.
Good morning. Can you give us a quick summary of your career to date?
Started out on the client side, learnt a lot about kind of managing brands and managing products. I always wanted to move to the agency side. Moved to the agency side after a couple of years. I think that was probably getting that first agency job was incredible, and I joined a direct marketing agency.
So what year was this? You were the first kind of client
God,
side?
you're right, you're asking me questions now. I think probably 86, 87. Joined my first agency, D&B Direct. Learned lots about agency life. I mean, when I first went there, you didn't know much. You had to learn pretty fast. And then after that, I joined a great agency called Limbo, who were the below-line agency of BBH. And that was a great time to be at BBH.
With Mike Cavers?
Mike Cavers, Juliet Timms, Ben Stevens, Steve Stretton, Carol. I mean, a lot of great rock stars who are leading agencies around the industry today. So that was a real kind of melting pot, and we all learnt a lot. We did some great work. We kind of pioneered and learnt a lot from being part of the whole BBH culture.
And you were on the client services side?
Yeah, I joined as an account director and ended up as head of client service. Small agency, but no, great experience.
Okay, and then after that?
Then I joined Ogilvy, and that was 96. I joined Ogilvy, big network agency. They had a great reputation at the time.
Was that Canary Wharf back then?
No, it was in Farringdon,
okay.
Which is a wonderful part of town. And I spent 4 years in Farringdon. Rory Sutherland was head of copy. And enjoyed that. There was a guy called Steve Harrison who was the executive creative director. Again, some really fantastic people at that agency. Spent 4 years in Farringdon, then moved to Canary Wharf and was there for 12 years in total, and ended up as CEO.
And then you decided to come.
Then I decided to come here. I kind of felt that I'd achieved everything I ever wanted to achieve at Ogilvy and needed a new challenge. And I knew some of the AMV characters from some of the work I'd done on BT. Big agency. I kind of felt that it wasn't at the time necessarily living up to its reputation or its full potential, and wanted to take it on as a challenge. And here I am 4 years later.
What's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you in your career so far?
The most embarrassing thing that's happened in my career. I mean, fortunately, there haven't been any really embarrassing moments in front of clients. There have been some embarrassing moments, not really embarrassing ones. There was a moment, I think, when we did, not too embarrassing, we were pitching for the Johnson & Johnson business, and I've got a client called Andrew Robertson.
What agency was this?
This was here, when I was here. And I've got a boss, a very famous boss called Andrew Robertson, based in New York. And we were about 5 minutes into this pitch. I was doing all of the kind of intro spiel, and the phone rang in the boardroom. So what's going on? So I kind of wandered over, picked up the phone, and they said, "Oh yeah, Andrew Robertson's in reception for you." And I assumed it was my client, Andrew Robertson, who'd got the wrong day or was asking for the wrong person. So I said, no, it can't be for me. Can you ask him to speak to one of the account team? Put the phone down. Literally 2 minutes later, my boss, Andrew Robertson, walked into the meeting room. And that was pretty embarrassing because I'd literally just put the phone down to him. But the reason he was there, he knew the clients we were pitching to and just thought he would turn up. And so then I had to present the rest of my intro and the credentials part of this presentation in front of not only these clients but my boss.
What's the best bit of career advice you've been given?
It's a very good question. I think the best bit of career advice I've been given, but also a bit of career advice I really believe in, is that there are significant moments in your career that are going to make the difference between you really moving on and not moving on, or significant moments that are really important to the client or to your boss. And part of the trick of managing your career is spotting, when are those big moments. I think of it like a tennis match. You don't necessarily need to win every point to be a champion, but you have to win the big points. And I think a big part of career advice I got and career advice I give is you spot the big points, and if you win the big points, you'll really move ahead from a career point of view.
What would you say your big points have been?
A lot of them have been around pitches. One of the big knackering but exciting and events that kind of moved my career on was pitching and winning the BT business. We pitched against all of the best agencies in town. It was one of the kind of foundation accounts that it was going to make you famous, as an agency and as people working on it. And it was a knackering pitch. There were moments when literally you had to say, I'm going to push through this. I've got to get through it. And that was a big moment. So I think a lot of them have come around big pitch wins, actually, when you could either say, God, I'm so knackered, I can't do this anymore, I'm just going to get through it, or you say, no, I'm going to really do the best job I can because we want to win it.
If you could work for any other agency in the world, obviously outside of Proximity, who would it be and why?
Proximity and BBDO, fantastic network, and I've got so much more time to give here and stuff to learn here. I think it's probably a boring answer, but the network that I still admire and still love is Ogilvy One, and I'm delighted to see that they are still doing so well. It doesn't surprise me at all, and I think partly I would like to work with them because I've got so many friends there, and actually a lot of the people who are doing so well in the agency in London are people that I recruited over the last 15 years, and also some of the people I worked for are still there.
And for you, what's the best thing about agency life?
I think variety. I think where else can you work to get the chance to work on 3 or 4 of the best or the biggest brands in the UK, and that's not only the variety in terms of clients, but the type of work you do. I think you work with great people. I love the variety of the people you work with. The creatives, the analytics people, the financial people. Really great mix. And I think it's a creative environment. It's a kind of relaxed, creative environment.
When you were climbing through the ranks on the client services side, were there people in this industry or outside of this industry that you were kind of particularly looking up to or learning from? Yeah,
I think one of the people that I admired from a distance early on in my career was a guy called Simon Hall, who actually founded this agency, was Barraclough Hall, Woolston Gray. I worked with his wife, funnily enough, but he was really setting new standards in the kind of direct digital marketplace in terms of strategy and being a spokesperson, being a leader. So it kind of in a way it's no surprise that I came here because this was an agency I admired from afar, and he was one of the first people I phoned when I got offered the job or accepted the job to say, Simon, you'll never guess where I'm going. And he would have never have guessed where I was going. I was coming to run his agency.
That's a nice story. What advice would you give to people who are starting their careers and looking to get into the industry today? And is it a very different place from when you first entered? It's
a very different place, I think. I think it's managed much better than it was. I think there is more structure and discipline and rigour in the agency world than there used to be.
So was it kind of find your own way, find your feet?
It was find your own way. There was a lot of bright, maverick people who did amazing things, but also could crash and burn. I think there's fewer people are going to crash and burn now because there's more structure around it. Maybe you lose some of the mavericks, some of the really, big characters that you used to have in this industry as a result. What advice would I give? I would say, first and foremost, this is about people. This business is about people. It's about how well you work with people, whether you get on with people, how well you connect with clients. Fundamentally, it's a people business, and if you want to be work in a people business is the place for you. If you want to be successful, that's what you need to invest your time in.
When you first entered the industry, did you ever see yourself, or did you have aspirations to become a CEO of an agency?
I never had a kind of 5 or 10 year plan. I think I always focused on where I wanted to be in 2 years' time. And I don't know whether that's good advice to have or bad advice to have, but I've always set myself kind of short-term goals. And I think actually the move from being a senior client service person to taking on the leadership of an agency is a big move. I don't think it's a natural move. I think a lot of people get promoted from head of client service to managing director, and actually they are a good head of client service, but they're not a leader of an agency. So that was one of the hardest kind of jumps I'd made, because it is very different when you stand up in front of people and you're the leader of a group of people, an agency, but also a P&L.
What are your interests outside of work?
I've got family. I've got 2 grown-up daughters who take the piss out of me the whole time and keep me kind of real. I've got a 10-year-old son who's mad about football, so I get to do all the kind of boys stuff with him. I love sport. My father was a professional sportsman, so I've kind of loved the whole sporting thing. I'm quite competitive.
What sport was he?
He was a cricketer.
Okay.
He was a cricketer. He was probably desperately disappointed by the fact that I didn't follow in his footsteps and joined the agency world, and he probably could never understand it really. But I follow Spurs. I like watching rugby. Actually, I took cricket up again for the first time this summer. So I try and keep active as well as invest in the family.
Good, I'm a Spurs fan as well. Whereabouts do you live? Do you live outside of London?
Yeah, I live in Guildford. I moved out about 15 years ago. I do that commute into Waterloo. Actually, it's only about 35 minutes. I thought, I didn't know how I'd adjust to it, but it's a lot better than some people's commutes who live in London.
Yeah, it's true. What's the best brand you've had the pleasure of working on so far?
So difficult to say. I think 2 brands that were quite formative in my career. First was Audi. I was part of the kind of integrated team at BBH working on Audi, and that was, fantastic brand. We did some great work. I worked with, a lot of the heads of BBH at the time, who then went off to run other agencies. People like Richard Exxon, who was an account manager there. Neil Christie, was the account director there. I mean, I had some great times there working with great people on a great brand. And then I think the other formative one for me was BT, because that was, a massive piece of business, massively complex, high profile, again working with great clients and great agency people. And I learnt a huge amount about managing complexity and, managing an account of real scale.
What's the biggest and smallest value of account you've worked on?
BT and the BBC TVL business are probably 2 of the biggest ones. And actually, I said gosh, but we have Great Ormond Street here at this agency, and they're one of the smallest ones. But also one of the accounts that I'm most proud of, because when I joined, they weren't sure they wanted to, stay with Proximity, and we really worked hard and invested a lot of time into that account, and I think it's a great relationship now. So big or small, they're all really important.
And what's your favourite ad campaign of all time?
Interesting. I think I think probably, again, it goes back to one that I was involved with. So when I was at BT launched broadband, and there was a fantastic campaign that they developed with St Luke's, who were their agency at the time. And I don't know if you remember it, it was kind of a pipe bursting out of the ground with lots of different, Spitfire came out. Actually, this 3-headed dragon came out of it, and it was a massive production number. And I'm proud of it because it was a great integrated campaign. We carried through that thought across everything. But also I'm proud of it because if you think today, broadband is just part of the furniture. Yep. It's in everyone's houses. And 12 months before that campaign, I remember sitting with BT and they said, listen, there's this thing called broadband, there's going to be a natural take-up, the take-up curve that's going to look like this. We want to triple that. What do we have to do to make that happen? And I'm proud of that campaign, and I love that campaign, because actually we made broadband happen and made it part of the furniture in England, and that was the starting point.
Let's move on to a quick fire round.
I go on. Right. Let's over there.
Can line or D&AD pencil?
Can line.
Olympic gold medal or an Oscar? Olympic
gold medal.
The brightest person you've worked with?
Rory Sutherland.
The most creative person you've worked with?
Caitlin Ryan, my creative director today.
And the best looking person that you've worked with?
John Hegarty.
Creatives or suits?
Creatives.
Money or happiness?
Happiness.
Apple or Android?
Apple.
Degree or no degree?
Degree.
Art directors or copywriters?
Art directors, because I'm a closet art director myself.
Retained work or pitch work?
Retained work.
Web or mobile?
Mobile.
Independent agencies or networked agencies?
Network agencies, because I think they rock, and I've had some great times in network agencies.
Outsourced production or on-site production?
Outsourced production.
Don Draper or Roger Sterling?
Don Draper.
Interesting. And lastly, twist or stick?
Twist.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.